Okay, I wanted to make a video here showing exactly how this idle control system works, and a side note on the exhaust differences on these Briggs flathead horizontal shaft motors. These home lights were mass produced in abundance, and they're some of the most reliable generators out there. They're not inverter generators, however, they do have a voltage regulator board, which you can adjust by opening the panel and tweaking it, and they work okay. I would not plug a life support machine into this, but it'll get you by. The way this one works is it has an electromagnet controlled to the throttle lever, or rather the linkage coming from the governor, and when there's no load induced, it'll activate and it'll pull this like that, closing the throttle and running it at low RPM. And then there's basically just a load sensing coil in there that when it detects an induced load, it'll switch it off and you'll see the motor rev up. So I'll go ahead and I'll demonstrate that here in a minute. This one does have low oil shutdown with an indicator light, so if that's activated as you're pulling it, it'll light up. It basically just reroutes spark through the light up switch, and there's a little oil sensor in there. It's kind of like a reed switch, so that's quite helpful. You can turn that on, start it at choke, let it warm up, and then let it run. So I'm going to turn this off for now. It's going to come up to full RPM, and you'll see when I switch it on, I'm going to come over here and you'll see the electromagnet activate, and it's going to pull that. You can see quite interesting how that works. Might not be ideal in all situations because as you're reducing the RPM of the motor, you're also reducing the voltage output, which brings it down to about 85-ish volts. So not ideal in all situations. Now this one here is the 11 horsepower. Here's the model and type, if you care to look it up. And they came in different configurations with different exhaust setups. This one here has the manifold bolted directly to the block with these big, like T40 bolts, and that center diameter is a threaded 1 inch. Now, on my other one, you can see this linkage goes down here, and it bolts onto a bolt coming from the back of the back cover of the motor. Okay, so here's my other one. This is a Coleman 5,000 watts. Or 5,500, I can't recall. I don't see the sticker. Anyways, this is a 10 horse, and this is the exhaust that it had on it. It's that old school Briggs, basically threaded pipe. This is 3/4 inch. Now that just threads right into the block. Remember, I said on the other one it's a 1 inch hole. This one it's a 3/4 inch hole. The hole spacing here is also closer. It's not the same. So if you were to have that type of exhaust, the big muffler with the manifold, you need the smaller manifold, and the screws are also smaller. They're like a hex head screw with, I think, like a T30 center or something of that type. I can't get to the model on the front here, but I'll put it in the description below. You can also see that the generator portion bolts on a bit differently, and that bolt where the bracket for the exhaust would bolt in is not really accessible, so you'd have to somehow either loosen this or figure something else to get that bolt on. Now the problem here was with this one, I didn't have these lock rings on here. And I thought I was being creative by putting anti-seize on this muffler tube. What happened was with the vibration, this thing came loose and it began to oblong that hole, as you can see. So this no longer threads back into there. Now, you have to be very careful looking up the parts breakdown of these machines, because the different components that they come with will not be included in the breakdown highlight. You can only use the components that were designed for the particular machine, and you have to be very specific looking them up and look up the model and the type. Now, as I say, for this one, it was available in that configuration with the exhaust manifold and the larger exhaust. You just had to get the smaller manifold. And that's what I'm in the process of trying to figure out now to salvage this motor. If you do, however, have one of these, make sure you have the lock rings. These 3/4 inch EMT conduit rings, they will go on tight. And you kind of jam that on there to make sure that it doesn't wobble off. I had this 1 to 3/4 inch national pipe thread adapter that I was going to try and use on the other one and swap the exhaust, but that didn't work because this inner thread is not actually the same. So just something to take note of if you're working on these motors and trying to swap exhausts.